success, wealth, recognition. Gary Cooper had it all, lost it all, then turned a revolutionary discovery into the success paradox. Here's Gary.
Joe Moglia is the former CEO of TD Ameritrade and the former football head coach at Coastal Carolina. He's now Coastal Carolina's chair of athletics and the executive director for football. He is also the author of 2 books, The Perimeter Attack Offense and Coach Yourself to Success, Winning the Investment Game. Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Well, I appreciate that, Gary. Now, are you executive chair of Palmetto Infusion?
Yeah, so I've built and sold 7 companies, and Palmetto Infusion is my current endeavor, and we started it 25 years ago. It is in 6 states, does about $700 million in revenue. We serve patients that have chronic conditions like MS, Crohn's, colitis, arthritis, severe asthma, and we service them in places that's a lot easier to get to than hospitals, and they're 50% cheaper than hospitals.
Well, I'm a patient of yours.
Are you really?
Yeah, I am. I'd be 2017, I'd take a medical sabbatical because I actually had mold in my lungs. Wow. It was allergy related, but nobody found it. It was growing there for 2.5 years. So subsequent to that, one of the things that the doctor thought by 2019 was that blue collar shots were a good thing for me. And the only way I could get them is through all of you. So when I was reading up on your background and I saw that, I just came from there yesterday. So I was throwing your name around all
That's
the time.
Incredible.
So they had little snacks there. So I said, I want extra special fancy pastries.
That's awesome. A lot of people, they want to hear about your football story and the CEO story. I want to hear how a guy got off. I think I heard you say in one of your speeches, 181st Street. Your dad had a grocery store, right?
Yeah.
How the hell did you go from 181st Street to do what you do? How the hell does that happen?
So my dad was an Italian immigrant. He came here when he was about 11, never finished 8th grade, didn't speak English, and sold bananas and apples in the Bronx his whole life. He had a store on 181st Street, right off Broadway in Washington Heights in Upper Manhattan. And my mom, he met my mom after World War II in Ireland. She was born and raised in Ireland. So she came to this country to marry him and moves in with my dad's family. Lives at 4535 Park Avenue in the Bronx, overlooking railroad tracks in the Italian section. Gary, did you ever see The Bronx Tale?
Yeah, I have seen that. I've seen that movie multiple times. It is so good.
Well, that neighborhood, they call it the Fordham section of the Bronx, about 10 blocks from Fordham University. It's only about 10 square blocks. That's it. And but that's where my father grew up his whole time in this country from when he was 11 up until the time he married my mom, which was about 32.
Yeah, I have seen that movie, and the Irish and the Italian, I see where you get the spunk from.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can see that.
So they ultimately moved to the Dyckman Street section in New York City, which was a gang area. And I was part of a gang from the time I was about 10. 2 of my very best friends in grammar school got killed in high school. One died of a drug overdose. The other was killed by the police robbing a liquor store. If I had not been playing high school football, I would have been with the guy robbing the liquor store. And that was a pretty good, wake up call for me. And I wanted to do something with my life. I wanted to stay out of the neighborhood and wanted to, my goal was to play football, baseball in college, and my girlfriend gets pregnant. So that kind of ended that. And I worked for my father in the store from the time I was 10 till the time literally I left to go coach in Delaware for my first high school job. And my dad wanted me not to go to college. He wanted me to work in the store. And he said, you're not going to get an athletic scholarship now, and we don't have no money for college. So the best thing to do is you got responsibility to support your family. Come work in the food store. And, one day maybe we'll have 2 food stores, maybe 3 food stores.
Right. The American dream.
Yeah. And I said, Dad, I really think I got to do this. And he really asked me, think about this seriously. And I did. And I came back and said, Dad, I got to go to college. He reminded me we had no money. And I said, I'd figure it out. And he said, now think about this. I'm a teenager. My whole life's changed. I'm going to wind up going to Fordham University in the Bronx. And Dad tells me you're making a big mistake. Okay. So by freshman year, I'm supporting my wife and my daughter. I'm driving a yellow cab in New York City. I'm paying every penny of my education. I'm driving a truck for the post office. In fact, I became a driving instructor on trucks for the post office and working in my father's food store. Now, this is going to shock you, Gary, Well, this just wasn't the most fun a freshman ever had in the history of college freshmen.
No, definitely not.
And it was also the first year of my life, though, where I didn't have sports. So Fordham Prep, all boys Catholic high school on campus at Fordham University is where I wanted. I had a good career there. Bottom line, they offered me a coaching job. So my sophomore, junior, senior year, I coached high school ball during the season, worked in my father's fruit store in the off season. I majored in economics, and I wanted to go to Wall Street. But I really I got tremendous satisfaction out of the coaching, and I decided that if I could get a head high school job, I'd want to pursue a career in coaching. I only had 3 years of experience, but I want to pursue that. If not, I'd wind up going to Wall Street. Or at least I would hope so. And I remember just a side story, talking to my wife at the time. And I said, here's what it will be like if I go to Wall Street. Here's what it would be like if I become a coach. And we're going to have to move. We're not going to make enough money. We go to Wall Street. We're going to make more money. We're going to have to move, blah, 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 blah. And she said, I remember the time she said, Joe, I don't care if we make $50 a month and we live in a cave as long as we're together.
Wow.
Well, she changed that tune after a couple of years. That didn't last long at all. So I applied probably 100 schools, and I got one head high school job offer. Also at a boys' Catholic school in Claremont, Delaware, a place called the Larchmere Academy. So at 22, to this day, I'm the youngest head coach in the history of the state of Delaware in football, and it happens to be the same school that Joe Biden and his whole family went to.
Wow.
Yeah, same school. And so my goal was then to be, if I was going to be a coach, I wanted to be a head coach at a major college. You fast forward a little bit, I'm now coaching. Go to 1981, I'm the defensive coordinator at Dartmouth. By then, we have 4 children, and we're in the middle of a staff meeting our first season. I remember this like it was yesterday. And the sheriff from Hanover, we had a lot of cops in New York City, but not a lot of sheriffs. And the sheriff from Hanover comes in, and he needs to see me. I thought there was a death or an accident in the family, and says, Coach, I'm really sorry. He hands me divorce papers. So I couldn't afford to live independently and support 4 children and my wife. So I got permission to move into a storage room above the football offices. I lived there for 2 years. I didn't mind that so much, except it had no heat. This is New Hampshire. And the average temperature in the wintertime is single digits. So I could see my breath during the wintertime. Well, in January 1984, if you're more of a football historian, Miami upsets Nebraska in the Orange Bowl for the national championship. One of the biggest upsets in the history of college football. Bottom line is they offered me a job to go down there as defensive coordinator.
Is that Jimmy Johnson?
It was Schnellenberger.
Okay.
Yeah, Johnson came in after him. And for me, every one of those guys got major jobs in the NFL or major college jobs. In fact, the guy's whose job I was going to begin taking was Mike Archer, who had just gotten a head job at LSU. So I could not have a more perfect job for me to kind of build my career than this one. And
you wouldn't have to see your breath, in your garage apartment.
But I still wasn't going to be able to make enough. Back then, we didn't make make much money as coaches. And a football coach, works 80 hours a week. We work 7 days a week. We go 5 months. We don't get a day off. Whole career is dependent upon what we do on Saturday. Then we go on the road recruiting. So I've got 4 kids that are going to live in New Hampshire with their mom. I'm going to live in Coral Gables, Florida. I can't afford to fly them back and forth. And it really hit me hard that I didn't think I could do my job as a football coach if I couldn't live up to my responsibility as a father. Toughest career decision to this day, in over 5 decades, equally divided between Wall Street and football. Toughest career decision I've ever made was turning down that job. And I always had an interest in the institutional side of Wall Street, not the private client wealth management stuff, the institutional side of Wall Street. And I was fortunate enough, Merrill Lynch gave me an opportunity to put me in their MBA training program. There were 26 of us, 25 MBAs, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, et cetera, and 1 football coach. And everybody said this football guy's never going to make it here. But I did make it there. And a few years later, those MBAs were working for me. Very proud of my career at Merrill Lynch. I was there 17 years. With the 1990s, you recall, we had the dot-com boom, and then the bubble burst, and then we had a pretty serious recession from March 2000 to March 2003. Well, the dot-com companies were going out of business. One of those companies was Ameritrade. So they had done a national search, and bottom line, they asked me to take the job. I decided I'm going to do that. I moved from New York City then to Omaha, Nebraska, which is where Ameritrade's headquartered. And we really were going out of business. And we did a great job of turning them around. There were opportunities that were popping up along the way, but I wasn't able to take those. One of them was the possibility of the commissioner's job of the NFL. And I would have loved that job. Paul Tagliabue was the commissioner at the time. He was going to step down in 2006. I was approached in 2004. But I'm still CEO of Ameritrade. And we led the industry in consolidation. We figured we did a good job on the business side. We figured it out. As long as I was responsible for Ameritrade, we were doing deals. I had to deliver on most deals don't work out well. And you just don't know that because they don't talk about it. I did 11 when I was CEO, and we were 11-0 with those deals. And I'm very, very proud of that.
M&A deals?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In 2006, Ameritrade bought TD Waterhouse from TD Financial Group. That's the parent up in Canada. Part of the deal was we would take the TD name and put it in front of ours. So part of that deal, that's how it became TD Ameritrade. So we were never a wholly owned subsidiary of TD, but they were our largest shareholder. They owned 39% of the company. They had 5 of the 12 board seats. I stepped down in 2009 because I thought there might be other things I might want to do with my life. Now, my last 6-7 years, my shareholders had a 500% return. That included the financial crisis. Now, no other financial firm in the world did that. Nobody.
That's
not
crazy.
Warren, not Goldman Sachs, not Bank of America. Nobody did that. And if we were a college football team, it would have been like we won 2 major national championships in a row, but not like Alabama winning. It would have been like Coastal Carolina winning 2 national championships in a row. And I had never been in more demand in my life. We got it right during the crisis, but I didn't step down just because I wanted to take another job. But I was really in demand then. Then I got a call from a group of alumni at Yale telling me that their job might open and would I be interested. And I remember looking at the phone, Gary, and saying,
You mean a football job?
You get, yeah.
Can I stop at Yale for a second?
Yeah, stop at time, yeah.
So you were at the biggest decision of your life between football, of going down to Coral Gables or staying in New Hampshire, but you didn't explain, how did you have one foot in finance? I mean, how the hell did you decide, I think I'm going to go to Wall Street? I mean, how's that happen?
Okay, so go back to when I was in college. I majored in economics.
Okay.
Remember, I grew up in New York City, so I had an idea my father didn't finish 8th grade. I was
going to say, you were selling bananas and stuff.
Yeah, I was selling bananas and apples, but I also went to Fordham Prep, which was all boys Catholic high school. It was about 1,000 boys. And a good chunk of those came from New York City, and a small chunk of that came from the inner city like I did. But then there's also affluence from Westchester and doctors and lawyers and executives of corporations who became my friends that I became somewhat familiar with. And I became familiar with the world outside of the fruit store, right? So that was in high school. I think I've always had an interest in business, and I was fascinated by what went on Wall Street. So while I didn't know exactly, I had a pretty good idea. I thought at least what it was. But if I remember, I did athlete coaching. I still lived work in the dark. So if I was going to get
had 4 kids and a wife, and you could see your breath.
Yes.
when you were in your apartment.
That's right. The reason for that was because I couldn't afford to live independently and take care of that.
Right.
So when I first went to Wall Street, I was the highest paid defensive coordinator in the Ivy League at the time, and I was making $33,000. As a trainee, as an NBA trainee, now today I think it's like $200,000 I started at, but back then they started the NBA trainees at $42,500. $42,500 in New York City, that's no better than $33,000 in New Hampshire.
Right. Cost of living and all that.
Yes. So my mom's idea, she wanted buying a house. This was well after I was out of the house. She wanted buying a house in Yonkers, like 1,800 square foot house. But I still couldn't afford to live independently and take care, especially in New York, to take care of my family. I moved back to with my parents. So for 4 years, I never lived independently because I was trying to take care of my family. So those 2 years with my parents were my trainee year and my first year in production as a bond salesman at Merrill Lynch. And remember, I said if I didn't get a head high school football job, I was going to try to pursue a career in Wall Street. That would have been just as
And you were working 80 hours a week.
As a football coach, yeah.
And then it couldn't have gotten much better on Wall Street, right? You worked your butt off there too.
Well, one of the nice things about coaching, I never had much of a commute, especially when I was living in the loft. It was above the football. I had to walk downstairs. That wasn't bad. When I was living with my parents, I had to walk 1.5 miles to get to a bus.
It sounds like their stories. I had to walk a mile.
I had to walk 1.5 miles to get to a bus to take me to this train that took me to the subway to get me to Maryland downtown Manhattan. It took 1.5 hours one way. I did that for 1.5 years. I kind of broke records as a bond salesman. And on Wall Street, if you do produce, you get paid pretty well. By halfway through my second year, I got an apartment downtown. I still have a place in New York City. So that was how I went to Wall Street. But I went as a trainee. Now they put me in the MBA program, so a little bit of a fast track program. But if I didn't do well there, they would have fired me.
As producer, get out.
Yeah.
So that's how you jumped over, and then the TD and all that came later. And I mean that story is just amazing, the TD story. And then you had all the success at TD. you're blazing through that pretty quickly, which, I mean, is just an amazing story. And I was going to say you could write a book about it, but you have written books about it. I mean, your resume is just absolutely bonkers. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. When you get to the point you're like, okay, I'm at the top of my game. I'm at the top of the TD Ameritrade deal. I've kicked ass. I did the 500% return. Like you said, it's almost like spiking the ball in the end zone after your second Super Bowl. I think I'm going to go coach football. And all your buddies around you are like, hey, what? How the hell did that happen? What did your friends at TD Ameritrade and all those guys say?
First of all, when I told my buddies at coaching that I was going to go to Wall Street, they said, what? What? Are you crazy? I said, you're a football coach. You're going to be a great football coach. Where do you go to Wall Street? You're a football guy. I said, well, I'm going to go to Wall Street. There were two things that I've done with my life that I'm very fortunate in the sense that there were two things that I believed I had the skill sets for. I know I had the skill sets for now, but I believed I had the skill sets for then, that I really loved doing and been reasonably successful at. And how many people get a chance to wind up doing that in one career? But that's part of the reason why I was successful, because I picked career paths that were right for me. They were really tailor-made almost for me. So now how I go back to football, you go back to this call I get from Yale. And they suggest that the football job might be open. Would I be interested? And I literally looked at the phone. I remember like it was yesterday. And I said, guys, you understand, I have not coached football for 24 years. And they said, yeah, we know that. We put together a group, by the way, to kind of look at this. And we analyzed the skill sets. Now, these were business guys that were Yale alumni that loved football. And we analyzed the skill sets that are required to be a head college or a head NFL coach. And we think you not only have those, you actually have competitive advantage other people don't have. There's only one problem with that. I go, yeah, what's that? And he goes, in 135 years at the time, nothing like this has ever happened in the history of college football, period. It's going to take a special president to be able to make that type of decision for you, because an athletic director is not going to be able to sign off on it. But think about it. I did, and I really spent time on this. And about 6 months later, I decided that at a time where I could do anything I wanted to, I picked by far the hardest career path I could, because I was only going to go back as a Division I college coach. And that's when they gave me an opportunity to be at Nebraska for a couple of years, and then the UFL for a year. And the transition, because they never had before, the academia, for example, Yale didn't even give me an interview. While people were fascinated by my story, and I was getting write-ups in Sports Illustrated and some TV stuff, it was a good story, but typical college world doesn't really assess risk-reward like that. And I got a call from Dave DeCenzo, who's the president of Coastal Carolina, who also has a place, coincidentally, in Prince George.
I'm friends with Dave.
Oh, you are? Oh, well, there you go. Well, Dave was the one that made the decision to hire me. And he calls me, and he said that it's going to be very difficult. He said, we've got a program that has not been doing well. Our kids are not graduating, and we believe we could at least be competitive more than the national level. And it's going to be very difficult for a college president to give you a coaching job. But at some point, somebody will. But before that happens, I want to be the guy. Would you come down and take over our program? I said, I'd be proud to do that. That's how I wound up back in coaching. And that's how I wound up at Coastal Carolina. And I moved down here in 2012.
Yeah, Dave is an amazing man. He's transformative in his leadership, and what he did with you absolutely transformed. That little technical college out in front of Coastal used to raise
Georgetown Tech.
Yeah, or Georgetown Tech used to raise about the same amount of money before Dave came, and now Coastal Carolina is destined to be the number one largest university in the state of South Carolina, bigger than Clemson and University of South Carolina. And it's because of Dave and the football program that you guys built there. That football program put Coastal Carolina on the map. And then the baseball program winning the national championship literally put Coastal Carolina on the map. And it's a great place. The weather, Coastal Carolina is a big attraction for the kids from the north to come down and go to college right on the beach. So, Dave, I can't say I watched one of your speeches and I saw the accolades you gave Dave. I can't say enough nice things about him. But one of the things, getting back to you, wherever you've gone, you've won. Sometimes we destroy words. I think we've kind of overcooked the word culture. But where have you gone? You must have created the culture, a winning culture. How have you done that in both of your worlds, football and finance? How have you taken that winning culture wherever you've gone? Because it has to have the root in coaching, I'm assuming.
It does. And so you go back to that first head high school job I had. Now, I had never been more than 10, 20 miles outside of New York City. Now, I'm a street savvy guy. I got good common sense. I've got good street savvy. I've got some good skills. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I know what I'm doing. And but also, especially growing up, people still say today I'm rough around the edges, and I buy it. That's fair. That's fair. But growing up, I was really rough around the edges, but I was also unsophisticated because I had never experienced things outside of New York City. And so I remember going to the New Jersey Turnpike, and I asked the toll collector. We didn't have machines then. So I asked the toll collector, Delaware Memorial Bridge. And the guy's 118 miles that way. I go, okay. I remember driving for 30 minutes, and this is how unexperienced I was in Worthington. I mean, holy smokes, I've got 30. Remember, I'm driving a cab in New York City, a truck for the post office in New York City. Holy smokes, I've got 30 miles. I've not hit a red light yet. This is like
crazy.
Unbelievable. I thought Delaware was the deep south. So what was it that was driving me to do this? What was it? Because I love the idea of Wall Street. I enjoyed economics. I'm going to move my family to Delaware. I didn't even know where it was. Why? What's driving me? It wasn't the love for football. The football. By the way, I think football to me is like master's chess with 22 people moving at once with a lot at stake. I'm very good at that. But I know I can pull together a program. I know I can influence people. I know I can do those things. But what was it that was really driving me? And it was the satisfaction I'd gotten from coaching the 3 years that I coached. And I thought about this again and again and again. And when I got to Archmere, the first time I met with my team, I said, we're going to win, but this is more about that. It's really kind of growing up and being a man. But a man is not some tough macho guy. A real man, a real woman, a real leader is somebody that stands on their own 2 feet, takes responsibility for themselves, treats others with dignity and respect, and lives with the consequences of their actions. That's it. Now, I thought that was a good foundation upon which to build culturally and philosophically when I was 22 years old. To this day, it has been the foundation and the competitive advantage I've had as a leader across 5 decades, across 2 entirely different career paths. That was the standard I had when I was on Wall Street. As I moved up to executive management, that was the standard I had for my people. There were no excuses. We take responsibility for ourselves. We don't come up with no's. We come up with how we're going to figure something out. We try to find outside the box competitive advantage. How do we differentiate ourselves? That's all part of this, but that was the standard. Now, when I got to Coastal Carolina, I've got 120 guys on the team. I've got another 25 coaches, interns, analysts, et cetera. They're all guys, 150 guys. So BAM, be a man. We have a trade. I don't know if you've seen it, but on campus, it's a trademark, and it's BAM, and it's a football guy in the middle of the A, and it's a great trademark. It's in the back of our jerseys, it's on the way to practice field, it's in the stadium, and there were 2 things we did at Coastal that no one in the country was doing. First thing was we had no rules, none, 0. There's not a football program in the country that doesn't have rules. We had BAM though. We had a standard. It's exactly what you said. Stand on your own 2 feet, take responsibility for yourself, treat others with dignity and respect, live the consequences of your actions. That standard is much higher to live up to than just a set of rules. So with regard to our players and our family, that was the way we recruited them. We said, if you come here and you're not good enough to play, that shame on us. We made a mistake evaluating you as an athlete. But if you come here and you don't live up to BAM, you're going to get thrown off the team. And that's exactly what we did. In fact, just by my first year, I inherited 71 guys from the previous team. Of the 71 guys from the previous team, there were 25 that were having behavioral issues. When I came in, I said, guys, this is a great opportunity. I had all 25 stand up in front of the team, my first team meeting. And I said, you stand up because you guys have been jerking off the last couple of years. You've been not doing what you're supposed to do. And that's going to be a problem because BAM is all about taking responsibility for yourself. But you got a new coach starting all over again. But if you're going to continue to act the way you've been, and you've been acting that way when you got a new guy coming in, that also tells me you're not smart enough. So my first season of those 25 guys, I threw 14 of them off the team. 11 of them were starters. But that made the guys on the team really, really believe that we're not fooling around with this. And they took that to heart.
I've experienced that in business, and maybe I can, like a segue. There's top producers in finance, or in my world in healthcare. There's people that really can, and sales, They could be real top producers, but troublesome for the organization. And we will let them go too. Because if they don't want to work as a team, they don't get to stay on the team. Is that what you did with those football players?
For example, there's no rules. So you come to a meeting late, let's say. But if you come to a meeting late, well, is it your responsibility to be at that meeting on time? And by the way, when you come in the meeting late, isn't that disrespectful to the other guys in the room? There's not one thing. We made it very clear. This is not just about football. This is about your academics. This is about everybody knows who you are as a football player, your behavior on campus and off campus. And it's about, and you're always going to be somebody's son. You're going to be somebody's brother. You have a responsibility still to your family. So BAM covered all phases of their lives. I had the exact same thing as an executive in the business world, except we didn't call it BAM, but it was the same principles.
One of the things that I love that you talked about in one of your speeches, you talked about LAF. I can't remember what it stands, life after football.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Good job.
Because you talked about life after football. You know, what percentage of the kids go on to play football after college? Maybe, 2%?
Small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 98%, I loved what you were doing with them. You're telling them about what's going on in the world, how to prepare for life after football, or if you were going to go on to play professional football, how to market yourself, how to get an agent, all those kind of things. What we try to do and what I've tried to do my entire career, I remember I sent my CFO probably 10 different jobs that looked really cool. I thought they would be cool for him, to my own detriment. And he finally said, "Are you trying to get rid of me?" I said, "No, you're my friend. And these look like really cool jobs I thought you might be interested in. I don't want you to leave. But these jobs," one was a CFO job at a great hospital down in west coast of Florida, making twice what I could pay. And he's like, "Are you trying to get rid of me?" I'm like, "No, but I know you could get that job making twice what I could pay you." So that was kind of my LAF, like trying to better somebody that works with me. He's still with me after 22 years.
That's a cool story.
So I love the fact that you were developing your guys for something much more important than playing football.
So remember I said when I got to Coach Florida, there were two things we did nobody else in the country did? Well, one was we had no rules. We had BAM. And the second one was we're the only program in the country that gave up 30 minutes of practice a week. Nobody gives up practice. In fact, they go overboard where they're not supposed to. We gave up 30 minutes of practice a week. Most time I ran the meetings, but not always. Those meetings had nothing to do with football. Now, they always had a lot to do with BAM, taking responsibility for yourself. And by the way, football you can get injured. Now, these are college guys, but you can get injured. Yeah, even if you go to the pros, if football comes to an end. There's going to be life after football. You got to think about that. So what were the most critical things kind of going on in the world back then, which is still going on today? You know, the biggest threat that I felt the world had at the time still does, terrorism. So I wanted my guys to understand how critical that is. So we live in the greatest country in the world, but there are hundreds of thousands of people in the world that have unlimited funding that would gladly give up their lives to take our lives away because we're the infidels and we're in effect evil, and their families will be rewarded afterlife in heaven to take our lives away. So that's pretty good motivation. So how does that work? My guys knew what ISIS stood for. I bet you 99% of students in this country don't know what ISIS stands for. My football players did. And if that's the biggest threat, then how do we protect ourselves? Well, through the military. So then I wanted my guys to appreciate that there are guys your age in the Middle East putting their lives on the line so we can live in freedom. But with those freedoms come responsibilities. Go right back to BAM again. Then, okay, well, what role do we play? Well, we live in a democracy. So we got to hope that our political and military leaders have the guts to do what they believe is the right decision, even if they don't get reelected, even if they don't get a promotion, even if they don't get a bonus, because this is our future of our nation at stake. So what's the best decision we've got to be able to make? Well, what role do we play? Well, we live in a democracy. We have the right to vote. In 2016, and then in 140 years of college football, the only program, only in 140 years, program in the United States whose entire football team voted for the President of the United States was Coast Carolina.
See, I just think that's badass because
it is badass. It is bad. I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
I just think that's badass. Not only did you turn their job into something much more meaningful, they got a much more meaningful college experience because of what you did. I think of sports as much more than the actual sport. My son has potential to be a D1 basketball player, and I never talked to him about the sport. I talked to him about basketball is much more than putting the ball through the net. It's about depending on your teammate. It's about sacrifice. It's about the assist. It's about teamwork. And he and I talked more about that. I never talked to him about how he played, about a shot he missed, or about dribbling the ball better. I talked to him about teamwork. And voting has nothing to do with carrying the football, but it has everything to do with carrying the football.
Yeah, I agree. You would have made a great football coach if you decided to go in that direction.
I don't know about that, man, but I do know one thing or two about struggling with success, and I want to get to that next. We have to stop here. Next time on the Success Paradox, Joe Moglia, the former CEO of TD Ameritrade, talks about how he knew he had finally made it at Coastal Carolina.
Thankfully, we started winning right away. We started winning conferences. Our kids started graduating. We started getting All-Americans. I'm Coach of the Year, blah, 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 blah. How do I know I've been accepted down here? Because in the last 11 years, I've been pulled over 9 times, and I've gotten 0 tickets.
To learn and practice the Success Paradox lifestyle, visit GaryCCooper.com. The Success Paradox is a production of Forbes Books.